Hi, John Witherbee from Witherbee's Chairs, doing a little different video this time. Over the past few months we had this COVID-19 shutdown and my work was very slow. I had some time on my hands. I bought a 1952 Bear K4 and I decided to make one for myself. Just made a knockoff of it. This one's ebony riser, black glass, different tips. But we're not talking about the bow at this time. But I thought it looked cool and I wanted to make an arrow that looked a little cooler. I like shooting all kinds, wood, carbon, fiber, but I decided, why don't I make some footed shafts to go with it? So we'll go in the shop and take a look how we do it. So we're starting with a 3/8 square. This is poplar, but of course you can use whatever wood you like. Doug fir is one I use quite a lot, which I like the best. Hard for me to find really good Doug fir. Poplar is something you can get really easy almost anywhere. So what we need to do is make grooves, tapered grooves to fit an end. And what'll happen is it'll look, when we get it done, will look like this. That'll be rough. And how we make those parts is really pretty simple. This is a homemade router table with, it's a 90-degree cutter on it. It's very simple. I just made a little sled. It's tapered that they can sit in. Because what you want to do is cut where these points are straight back. You see how paper thin those are? That's a little too thin. So what I'll do is I'll cut it back. It's easier to cut it back than to try to get the point just as you want it. You don't want them too thin because you have the thickness of a bandsaw blade that you're going to fill. So it's easier to trim them back. And I've noticed that with changes in humidity, we'll change that cut for you. So if you have it set up just perfect and 2 weeks later you want to run it, you have to try it and maybe it might change a little bit with change in humidity. So we got that part. Then we need the foot. This is a piece of Wenge. It's pretty hard and it finishes very, very dark when you put the finish on it. It makes a nice contrast. And what we do, we'll run over to the bandsaw. Just put a fence on it. I use a board so it won't fall in if you have an open throat, and a stop. Real simple. That's the 4 feet that'll go in there. And then we'll glue them together. Okay, you take a couple of C-clamps, because when you push that in there, you'll end up splitting it the whole length if you don't hold it still. So you just put a clamp each direction, and take a hose clamp, you just drop it on. Now sometimes these don't open up like that, and you might have to put a little piece of wood to wedge it one way or the other. You take whatever glue is handy. Elmer's is fine. This is, what is Gorilla Glue? You can use hide glue. Hide glue is nice because it's very dark. It can hide some gappage. So then, just slide the two together like that. And you take a hammer. When you hear that dull sound, that means you hit rock bottom. I've hit rock bottom a few times. Then you just pull it up and tighten the hose clamp. It doesn't take a lot. In fact, you can make these flare out too much. Just enough to squeeze it tight. And let her set. Now we'll move on to cleaning it up and making an arrow out of it. Then we take a nice sharp plane. Trim that all down flush. This is more of a wintertime kind of project. You're doing, give you something to do. It's getting closer. So now what we're going to do is use this little jig that I made. There's a lot of different variations of this jig. Some people use a Lee Valley dowel maker. Router jigs of all types, people use. What you can do, if you look down in the front here, it's just a cheap bearing with a cut-off socket. So you have that 3/8 square hole that spins. It has a guide hole, and then it's got another guide hole out here. And you use your hand to help support it. And you just run it through with a drill. This is just an Allen. You just use that end to drive. You just put it on, see that way. You can cut it to length. I make them a little long because sometimes you have a little chatter coming through. And you can put your point taper on, of course cut them to length, put a knock taper on, and usually I put a taper on it. These are 11/32. I taper them 9 inches down to 5/16. Whatever you like, and if you're one of these people that are good at cresting and all that, well then you'll be happy. Not as hard as people think. It's pretty easy. If you can make your own arrow shafts, this is one way of making a footed shaft. It's certainly not the only way. Thank you for watching.